كتاب الله لا شيء سوى يهذبنا العمل به كتاب الله لا شيء سوى يهذبنا هذا القرآن يوحدنا لطريق الخير يوجهنا الله تعالى أنزله ورسول الله معلمنا رسول الله معلمنا
Yes. Well, yes, but I suppose. Yes, I just hope. Yes, it's not always necessary to hurt people. Sometimes, I suppose, it can't be helped, but it can happen that sometimes what somebody has told you you ought to do is not something you have to do anyway. I don't know specifically the exact details, but I'm thinking in terms of my wife's grandmother was 88 years old and due to die any day when my wife accepted Islam. Now, she covered herself. Her grandmother is dying out of her mind nearly anyway. She thought if she sees me dressed like this, she's going to be shocked. So when she went in to visit her grandmother, before she went in the room, she took this thing off her head. So her mother would say, "What happened to you?" You see? Because who says she has to go and upset her grandmother the day before she dies, when she's half out of her mind anyway, with something that's going to frighten her? Better she might say a nice thing to her grandmother, say, "What, what are you thinking about now?" Set her mind at ease in some way. Although there are some, I knew a young man in Toronto who was, his parents literally would kill him if they knew he was a Muslim. And yet the Muslim students around there were saying, "You've got to go to your parents and tell them that you're a Muslim." He doesn't even live with them. They live a long ways away. He says, "You've got to go there today and tell them this." What for? So they can kill him? I guess, I'm saying that's an extreme case, but that's how you might have been put in that position. Some people will insist on something they have no right to insist on, and I don't know the details there. But, so, if you're looking for advice, ask a lot of people. Don't take the first piece of advice somebody tells you. Somebody may insist on something and they don't know the full story. See? Well, as I say, I don't know all the details. That requires some discussion. Yeah, what I'm getting at is, for example, if you're visiting with your... Well, of course, you might be surprised, too. I'd only recommend. I know a young American who's thought his... Oh, all right, yeah. Yes. Well, anyway, as I say, you might be surprised, but if you think you know the mind of somebody. I knew a young man who's was talking about Islam to his sister, and his grandmother overheard him, and she turned on him and said, "How can you say that?" So he thought, now I'm really in trouble. I've upset my grandmother. But he explained to her what he meant, and she said, "Oh, I see your point." She accepted Islam, was a Muslim for 4 years until she died, and her family made life miserable for her until she died. You never know. You never know. Don't, be so sure. And there's people here who can probably tell you similar stories. I just heard one the other day of somebody who no one would ever guess this would be the last person who'd ever turned to Islam that they did. That was one thing to keep in mind before you form judgments. You think you know what's in somebody's mind. The other point is that if you're in your family's home, you don't have to cover yourself anyway. So I have to know exactly what are the circumstances. I mean, is it a matter of you leave their home and they follow you down the street to see if you covered yourself or what? Yeah, but does she know what goes on anyway? You see?
The reason why the woman is covered in Islam, she explains that it might be easier for them to
I hope so. Yeah, there's a lot of Oh, that's a tiny piece of it, really. That's not the real background for that. It's supposed to be a mark of, for one thing, a mark of dignity to a woman. It's she doesn't have to advertise what she's not selling. It has nothing to, well, it has very little to do with the idea that men are such animals they have to be protected from looking at women. That may be a part of it, but that's very little to do with it, really. That's because I don't think men are like that, but some may be. But that's not the point of it. Women are not covered to help men from out of their difficulties. It's something that's supposed to do some good for the woman, and it may be an aid to the man, but the point is what it does for women.